Jobkeeper is creating zombie companies. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my loyal stein of coffee in hand. I thought we'd have a look at an article written by Alexis Carey from news.com.au. It's discussing the Jobkeeper scheme and how it's apparently backfiring because it creates zombie businesses or zombie companies. Now, those of us that have had an interest in, economics, business, investing, and have been following the market for some time are familiar with the term zombie companies. There's some very famous examples. Essentially, companies that have just prodding along, aren't really innovating, or are just prodded up by access to dirt cheap finance, government handouts or stimulus or other concessions. And, their valuation on the market, the stock market, often doesn't reflect the actual value of the business in fundamental terms. It's all hopes, dreams, and fairy dust sometimes. WeWork is a prime and famous example. I wonder how WeWork's going right now in the commercial office space. We'll have to see. But this is good that it's actually hitting the mainstream media. Now, everyone, you may not be a fan of news.com.au, but it's a source of information that a lot of people go to. It's a popular website, So the fact that this issue is being raised on this platform is quite good. It'd be great to see if there were a bit more discussions about the cash ban. So let's have a look at this. Payments have only just started flowing, but the scheme may have backfired in a major way by creating businesses doomed to fail. Businesses doomed to fail. Now, this is the thing. We're in a strange time at the moment because all of the reserve banks and all these organizations, they seem to think a recession is the worst thing that can happen. Well, there is a price, definitely, when you have a recession. There's a price. There's some tough times. Some people will suffer. That's an inevitable part of life in one way or another. Life isn't fair. Fairness is an artificial construct, I'd say, created by people trying to manipulate you. But the thing is, you need that creative destruction in an economy to allow for the emergence of the new, the creative, the innovative, the brave. Everyone's so worried about Virgin falling down. That'll create an opportunity for new players to enter the space. Maybe new players that will be innovative and bring something new to the table. Otherwise, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. You'll just be doing the same thing over and over again. Because, we can't have tough times. People can't suffer. People can't face the consequences of their decisions. Our civilization will never build resilience. People will get fat and greedy off the grain from the emperor. Anyway, so let's have a look. The government's Jobkeeper scheme has been touted as a crucial lifeline helping workers and businesses stay afloat during the pandemic crisis. And in some ways, I understand, the government is forcing these businesses to close, so the government has a duty of care. The discussion of whether this forced closure was worth it or not, that's, we need to put that aside. It's happened already now. So the government has a duty of care. Is this Jobkeeper enough? Do people realize the government had this power? Should these businesses be able to sue the state for taking away their livelihood? You're all seeing the footage coming out of America where businesses are just refusing to close and people are getting arrested. Arrested because they need to be able to feed their workers. But a leading Australian economist claims it may have the unintended consequence of creating zombie firms. In a nutshell, it is feared the subsidy is artificially propping up some unviable businesses that will ultimately fail once the cash is withdrawn, sending employees onto government benefits. Well, yes, I thought that was the entire point, was just to ensure the unemployment figures weren't as shocking as they are. And I prefer the Roy Morgan methodology, where right now unemployment and underemployment combined together, they're the two I consider important, are sitting at about 25% of the workforce. If we add the Jobkeeper people onto that, there you go. If you add the Jobkeeper, job seeker, and government employees, you're looking at over 70% of our workforce currently in one way or another working for the government. Hello, comrades. in today's Deloitte Access Economics Budget Monitor entitled The Virus Sprint and the Recovery Marathon. The firm claims zombie companies created by Jobkeeper were problematic for the wider economy, although withdrawing support altogether was not the solution. One pandemic is enough for a lifetime, and there is a risk that Jobkeeper, as a measure designed to preserve jobs, could eventually create zombie firms that neither fully recover but don't go bankrupt. This would slow the broader recovery, but so too would a sudden stop to all support, the report states. Well, at least there's a discussion and concern about this happening. This is good, that it's getting out in the public realm. And I know there are some businesses that, they couldn't survive without Jobkeeper. Some small businesses that need it to keep their workers going. But the problem is, this doesn't force you to make the tough decisions. If you're a business, and here's the challenge I have. We had a client that was most of our work for, the next year or two. And then they sold the building, the project disappeared. So I had to make some tough decisions. We had to cut some staff pretty close to the bone. That's one lesson I've learned. Sadly, I've been in this situation 3 times in business where we built up our team to about, I think the most we ever got was 10 to 12 people, counting the part-timers. And we were heavily dependent on one client from one industry. First it was mining, then it was retail, then it was commercial refurbishments. And that's the challenge, because they'll pump you full of work and keep you going. It's all good. You're investing money, infrastructure to deal with that, but you're highly dependent on one sector, one source, and things can change. Maybe that's a lesson our civilization needs to learn on a national level. That's why I'm scared when I'm reading all these things where, completely dependent on China for this industry. Crayfish, rock lobsters in WA. And, oh, look, our barley industry, 67% of it's going over there. Oh, iron ore is going there. That's why we need to be concerned. And it's a constant challenge. It's a challenge for business, particularly small business, when you step up and you provide service to clients, and you've got to keep going out there and getting more work. That's why even when I was flat out and busy, a lot of people, the office was busy, I would be getting out there double time, networking, mingling, meeting people to try and generate new opportunities, because I wanted that diversity. It was challenging. And there's some advantages now, having scaled back significantly and only taking one job on at a time at the moment. So I'm a lot pickier now, a lot less stressful. Profit's about the same at the moment, if not a little bit better, but that's a completely different argument. Nevertheless, getting back to this, by having the Jobkeeper, these firms aren't being forced to make those tough decisions. They aren't going, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let go of those 4 people right now. Guys, you need to find something else. We need to, sell that old equipment we don't need. We need the cash. Pay down that debt the business owes. Tough decisions. And that's, anyone who's been in business, in good and bad times, can relate to having to make some calls like that. And if you haven't had to make some calls like that, well, you're going to have to wait for the tough times. So it's a statement echoed by Queensland University of Technology retail expert Dr. Gary Mortimer, who said zombie firms were likely a particular problem within the retail sector, which was already struggling well before the pandemic. Brands that had moved into voluntary administration, and at that point I was critical of some for being lazy retailers that were too quick to rely on promotional incentives and discounting rather than looking at ways to improve the customer experience or clearly articulate their competitive points of difference, he said. As the pandemic restrictions have impacted the retail sectors, with many retailers voluntarily closing their stores, it's certainly reasonable to consider that some retailers were potentially already on their last legs anyhow. And that's a very good point he makes. Because at the beginning of the year, how many times were we hearing about a business going under, another business going under, another business going under? It seemed to be a recurring theme at the beginning of this year, guys. This period of closure and the added financial support through the Jobkeeper allowance may obscure the true financial viability of some retail businesses. They may remain currently in businesses underpinned by this government's financial support. However, As we return to a period of normal retail trade in the coming weeks and months, I suspect at that stage, we may see a number of retail brands fall by the wayside. Well, he's suggesting we go to normal retail trade. And I put it out there. Will behavioral patterns change? Are people worried about a coming recession? So will normal retail trade return? Will it return? Or people's buying behaviors have changed? Will everyone still, credit card applications are down? Will Afterpay still be as popular? Will people be buying those retail purchases, or will they be going to online or other sources now that they've gotten used to it? So it'll be interesting. We need to keep an eye on this, everyone, to see what happens in the next couple of months in the retail sector. Because remember, retail is a big employer, big part of our workforce. Last time I checked, about 10%. So it's decent. It's bloody big. So, meanwhile, it has emerged that Prime Minister Scott Morrison is considering cutting the $1,500 Jobkeeper payment or phasing it out faster than expected. Jobkeeper was due to last until September 27th in its current form. But while payments have only just begun to flow, the government is reportedly looking into several options, such as reducing the rate, targeting it at smaller businesses, or limiting it to sectors that have been worst affected by the crisis. Now, here's the thing. You want to avoid zombie companies, but you want to have certainty. You want to have certainty. If you're in an environment that is so rapidly changing, that's concerning now. And remember, we are living now in a world where every business person has to plan for the risk of pandemic-induced closures, forced state closures of your business. So you have to budget for that. You have to plan for that. That has to be in your risk management strategy. What would happen in your business if it was closed? I actually had a disaster plan in place for my business. When we were going for ISO 9001, we actually got it. I don't know how we did, but we got it. And this is when we were going for a lot of government work. And in that plan, I had a real simple one I made, but I actually had to implement it once because we had an office in West End, in South Brisbane, in the trendy part of the city, guys. Okay, I had an office in the back of a little factory that was used by industrial designers. And one of the idiots there working for the industrial designer decided to make furniture. And they make a lot of outdoor furniture, quite good, lovely products. But the problem is the furniture they make and the timber they use, it's all engineered timber products, and there's oils and all this stuff. So the entire warehouse and my office at the back, and it was a nice double-height office, looked beautiful, was covered with sawdust everywhere. It smelled horrible. There was off-gassing. There was fumes everywhere. And Rachel was pregnant, so I couldn't have her work there. I couldn't have any of the staff work there. So I had to implement my disaster plan, which in some ways was good to actually test it. So what was that? That was moving everyone from the office to my house, living room, where they all drive there. We set up a computer and they got working. We lost about half a day of productivity. And I tell you, I was mighty angry at that landlord. They were a pretty bad landlord, actually, now that I think about it, because the problem was the receptionist at the front had such attitude, and the young guys that were working there didn't kind of appreciate how much I was paying to use my car park and have access to this. So, yeah. Learned that. That's another fun thing of renting commercial office spaces. Let me know your disaster stories down below, everyone. Boy. So, here we go. Now back to this, enough story time. Our success in flattening the curve is the reason behind the potential rethink of this Jobkeeper scheme, but Mr. Morrison remained tight-lipped on the matter during a press conference this afternoon. The virus is still out there. It hasn't gone anywhere. There may be 700 or so active cases in Australia now, but Australia is still very much at risk, Morrison said today. The reason we are reopening is to put protections in place, and it will take us some time to reopen our economy and get it back to the point where it can start supporting Australians again. We have put in place and bought 6 months worth of time. We're only 6 weeks into that 6 months. We've put the commitment in to support Australians over that period of time, as we need to adjust based on advice and the strength of the economy and how many people are getting back to jobs. These are the things that we will watch carefully. He said speculation over Jobkeeper changes were premature. Okay. We have to have programs that use existing distribution mechanisms within the government. We've been doing all of these things. All of our programs will continue to be delivered according with those principles. I mean, he's in a tough situation here, the current government. I can't see... I mean, we could have approached it with the Swedish model, but there's a whole lot of risk. We'll never know. We'll never know if it was an overreaction or not. And now we have to live with the consequences. We have to understand the economic impact that's going to have and the social impact that's going to have. I would argue this is going to leave a change on a generation. It definitely will. So here we go, guys. Zombie companies or zombie businesses are going to appear in Australia. What do you think? Do you think it's a Jobkeeper? Are you supportive of it? Do you think it's propping up businesses that probably shouldn't keep going? Or do you think it's the duty of care that the state has by imposing these lockdowns on people? As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can support us via joining the channel at Patreon or via YouTube. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, buy our merch from HeiseSays, or PayPal. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time.